the employees reusing, recycling unused assets. With that, it reduced the cost, it reduced the waste, even sometimes generating revenues while promoting sustainability and collaboration. So this is a win-win approach.
My name is Patrick Hübscher, and this is Circularity FM, the podcast about understanding, building, and managing circular business models. Here we are again with our last episode of Irresistible Circular Business, the series that showcases the business practices that deliver irresistible commercial and circular results. Sponsoring partner of this series is Indeed Innovation, the global design and innovation firm pioneering the circular economy. You know it by now. In each episode, a member of the Indeed Innovation team joins me as a co-host. In our last episode, Breitling gave an impressive example of what it means to drive circularity in a company with lasting products and a rich heritage. Today, we switched from revenue to costs and learn how one of the biggest air, space, and defense companies saves resources and money. Normally, I tell you to sign up for the newsletter to get the one-page summary of this conversation. I don't do that today. I would rather ask you to provide some feedback on the last episodes, this series, or Circularity FM in general. Send me an email to contact@circularity.fm or reach out via LinkedIn. And if you just like what you hear or see, leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. With an academic background in business management, she started her career as a consultant for Accenture before joining Airbus about 23 years ago. After many years in the Airbus Civil Aircrafts division, she joined Airbus Defense and Space, where she is the environmental projects coordinator in defense and space production areas. Thanks for bringing all the people together here in the world. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you, Patrick.
Our second guest is an engineer by training and worked in software engineering in the mobile device industry before joining Airbus 16 years ago. Her role is business digital improver for industrial systems. I'm really happy to have her here today. Welcome, Amanda.
I'm happy to be there with you.
Wonderful. And our third guest served for 13 years in the German military Bundeswehr and at that time also studied there and gained his degree in business management. He ultimately joined Airbus also 23 years ago and had various finance positions, among them managing director and CFO of an Airbus subsidiary. He introduced himself as the finance guy, and right now he's the program manager transformation space systems at Airbus Defense and Space. Welcome, Bernd.
Thank you very much for having me.
And my co-host of this last episode of our series is also the one we started this series with. He is founding member and executive director at Indeed Innovation and helps companies on their transformation toward circular ecosystems. Welcome, Heiko.
Hello, everyone, and hello, Patrick. Here we are again. So nice to see you all. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here. I'm curious to hear what you all guys have to share. Thanks.
So I'm really looking forward to our conversation because in the last 5 episodes, we looked at the revenue side of circularity and circular practices. And now we look more on the cost and cash flow side. But before we do so, since we talk about Airbus, and Airbus is not a startup anymore, even not a small company, Natalie, can you give us an overview about the main business divisions of Airbus?
So, of course, Patrick, Airbus is the global leader for aerospace industry, and it operates through different business divisions. Of course, the most famous is Airbus Commercial Aircraft, which aims at designing, manufacturing, and selling commercial aircraft like A320neos or A350. The second business division is helicopters, which offers a wide range of civil and military helicopters, which provide solutions for transport, emergency, search, rescue, and defense missions. And the final one is defense and space. And this division focuses more on military aircraft and drones and spacecraft, satellites, orbital systems, and the associated services.
All right, that's quite a lot. And I mean, you're active all around the world and even in space. So I wonder, how does your circularity strategy look like?
So Airbus as a group has many different initiatives around circularity, including design for circularity, material efficiency, end-of-life management. But I think today the idea is to highlight a specific initiative that we launched, focusing on extending the use of unused material. The strategy is in 3 stages, if I may. When we have unused assets like a tooling or a containers, our first step is to offer it to other teams within Airbus through a digital marketplace. If we don't find, or if there is no interest internally, then we seek for external options, whether suppliers or external local company who could be interested to purchase either the tool or the raw material for reuse or recycling. And as a final stage, if those efforts are unsuccessful, then we explore donation options, either to universities, schools, or medical centers. And the idea of the approach is that we aim to minimize the waste, of course, avoid scrapping, and reduce costs whenever it's possible.
That sounds really like a very important, relevant aspect that you're touching here, and looks very much, which I really love, is looking into your own operations and really keep value, which is nice and really relevant. So, Amanda, maybe you can give us a bit more of a background, like how does all this started? How did you get into this? What was the initiation of all this?
The story, I would say, of SecondLife is split more or less in 3 major steps. So the first step was from 2018. It was the genesis of the project during almost 2 years. A French engineer looking to repurpose unused equipment in his lab submitted his idea to an Airbus research and technology incubator, and he won an award that allowed him to launch the very first digital proof of concept, tested it, and valorized 100 assets. Then came, as you know, the COVID crisis. So during 2 years almost, the project was stopped. From 2022, had the opportunity to get some new budget fundings. We redesigned the full idea to make it more user-friendly and to make it accessible to all Airbus employees. And this new digital solution was launched early 2023, so more or less 3 years ago. And during that period, we learned, in fact, a lot, because we discovered, I would say, the business processes. We discovered the way to organize exchanges, and in fact, it was really 3 years of learning. And we could say that now we are at the point that we are ready to be in a run mode, let's say, to be at scale, as we say in the digital project, So this tool is now recognized as a key contributor and a digital enabler to contribute to the waste reduction strategy of Airbus.
So now we understand what your journey was, but give us a bit of more of a background how this initiative or this digital marketplace, how does it work? What is the principle behind it?
Airbus Group is a huge company, but it's a set of local companies. And we have to consider each local company, so with the local rules, with local people, etc. So that's part of the specificities. And now I can enter in the how it works. So we have more or less four steps. The first step would be for someone who doesn't need anymore an asset, would be the ad creation. So an employee would fill out a standard form about the asset. So he will explain in a short description what are the physical information of the assets. He would add pictures, but also he would add some elements on the financial status, which is very important because we need to know if the amortization of the asset is done or not. And the second part would be the ad validation thanks to a local moderator. So generally, a moderator is local to an entity, a legal entity. So he would check the accuracy of the information, but also he would add or connect a category which is called the IAEG. In fact, this category and classification is key to determine the CO2 equivalent of an equipment. This methodology is, I would say, official and recognized in the aerospace industry. And this methodology is in fact based on the initial price of an asset and the classification. And thanks to that, we would have a CO2 equivalent, which is an approximation, but nevertheless, we have the equivalent. And after this step, so as soon as it is authorized, the asset and the ad is visible and published on the marketplace. So that's the second part. The third part is, in fact, related to the request. Now, someone is interested in the asset, so he would request the asset. The moderator would have the responsibility to, I would say, to assess, the relevancy as well of the exchange. So he would connect the offerer and the requester, but also he would perform some basic controls on the asset security, financial status, and logistic possibilities. So that's key. This step is really what we say the secure part. We need to control and to check whether the exchange is possible, and maybe to organize a sale. It can be a sale, it can be a free exchange or a donation externally to Airbus as well. And we authorize the transfer at this step. So that's the third step. The fourth step is really more or less the end of the process. You found a solution, a transport solution, and as soon as the asset is arrived at the final destination, in the digital workflow, we ask the people to close properly the exchange in the tool to monitor the impact of the exchange in terms of sustainability KPIs. And but at any stage and in any step, the offerer or the requester, so the two people that are involved in an exchange, can cancel the exchange, but can also the moderator can also refuse an exchange for any reason. So that's more or less how it works. It might be complex, but we need to secure the exchange.
And finally, you're also combining the digital workflow with the physical one because you're also shipping the stuff, which is great. Saying stuff, you mentioned assets and the things. So let's try and make it a bit more tangible for all of us, because maybe the listeners here think of things like I do, like, is it astronauts suits or is it satellites or what is it? Maybe you can give us some examples of what product categories are traded.
So in our marketplace, in our wonderful marketplace at Airbus, we handle, in fact, non-flying assets. This includes industrial equipment, toolings, some IT hardware, office furniture. So I can give you more examples. We can find some transport containers, trolleys, forklift, milling and drilling machines, IT cables, screen, keyboard, but also some very particular equipment such as a small aircraft mock-up, aircraft cut-off from manufacturing. So that's more or less what we can find. But what we don't manage, in fact, is sensitive items such as flying parts or export control goods.
That makes a whole lot of sense, absolutely. And you need to take care about the flying stuff because of regulations too, for sure. We are all happy that you take care about that. I mean, great to hear that story, which is nice. I want to get back to where it all started, because sure, there's we can all imagine that there's a ton of ideas that everyone working at Airbus constantly have on a daily basis. But how did you manage to make all this happen, like starting that initiative? Because getting from an idea to somewhere means that what have you been promoting? What benefits did you promise to the management to get an approval to start all this? Like, well, how did you do that?
It's a very good question. In fact, I think we never promised the moon. I think we didn't have the ability to forecast the future. But what we were convinced about is, in fact, the impact of such idea. And we were really convinced that the application would bring benefits on various areas, such as sustainability impact through the waste savings, but also the CO2 equivalent savings. Second aspect, the financial savings, for sure, by avoiding to buy a new asset, and also to provide employee satisfaction. And something that you don't measure directly, but you see the popularity by I would say, the number of users and the number of exchanges and so on. So satisfaction is also part of the benefits. I would say that for the promises, we were expecting to make it, as I said at the beginning, more robust, to make it more accessible, user-friendly, and with a digital and secure workflow. And that's where my leaders at Airbus Commercial Digital for Operation agreed to find a new solution after the COVID crisis to make it really bigger and robust. And for sure, during 3 years, we accompanied and change. And I think that is more or less what we're expecting the end users. It's not only an application. We need as well to, I would say, to accompany the people. It's not, digital alone does not make the difference. What makes the difference is digital and people. So we need to be here to accompany the change, to accompany the people, to explain how the processes were working, how it is possible to value unused equipment, and just to save them instead of throwing them away, because that is also a part of the functionality and the possibilities of the tool. So we testify the popularity of the tool by this new way of working. And now we are at the turning point where, as I said, the solution is positioning at central level to support the strategy of Airbus to decrease waste reduction. We learn by doing, and we really, we didn't promise the moon, as I said, but we were convinced by, I would say, doing. We demonstrated that the figures were really impressive.
Well, that's pretty convincing, absolutely. I think you make a good point here, saying that it's also coming from people. Like, so there's the engineer who started that, then you were convincing someone from the leadership, and that's all great to start off with. But you mentioned the thing that the platform was growing from there. So in growing, scaling that is part of the convincing activities. So how did you manage to make what we call it internal marketing, or what was crucial to get the internal traction to make it grow?
It's a very good question. So first, we attracted, as I said, to find financial fundings. And for sure, it was crucial to be convinced by the solution, technical solution, which was integrated in our IT standards. So that was key to make it robust, as I said, to improve the user experience. And as soon as the digital, I would say, part was ready, we leveraged, in fact, on, I would say, the change. Because to attract new users, to attract new moderators, so you need to, as I said, during the 3 years, we discovered a lot of I would say, the businesses, the processes, and so on. And the increase was regular, more or less 800 new users per month during 3 years. So it's quite amazing. And also we increase the impact of the solution, but we constantly communicate on the impact of the solution. We wrote some articles on the Airbus Hub. We also animate a user community to attract the people and to boost the solution, to make the buzz. That's what we did with our limited workforce, I would say. I think we did a great journey because we constantly increase the frequency of the tool. We highlighted the number of new users every month. We highlighted the success stories of the exchanges. We highlighted as well. We recruited as well champions. We recruited as well some moderators in locally. So I think that's part of the success as well of the platform. And to make visible as well the exchanges, we have developed new KPIs integrated in the tool. So we have developed collective KPIs to make visible, I would say, the global figures. So meaning the number of users, the number of successful exchanges, but also the impact of these exchanges on the waste reduction, but also on the CO2 equivalent information. That was, I would say, a motivation, an additional motivation, and the concrete results of what is ongoing, and as well to set some objectives on a yearly basis. So we have directly in the tools the objective to have to save an amount of kilogram of asset every year, and that's part of the collective objective to really to onboard new people.
Thank you, Amanda, for mentioning a point that seems of super relevancy for all of our listeners is KPIs. You grow the platform, that's nice, and you already mentioned 20% less waste. But KPIs typically are attached to what are commercial impacts. Can you share something on that, or maybe name some KPIs according to that when someone asks for the commercial side of this?
We need figures to monitor and to pilot such marketplace. So it's now 3 years that the platform is running. We have more than 24,000 users. So that's key. They logged in once in the tool, but we have a solid base of active users, around 500 users that are really active. They are using several times the platform to offer, to request. So we have this solid basement of people. And then those people, in fact, created more or less 1,000 of ads. That is quite interesting. And a third of them were successfully completed and contributed to the sustainability figures. So they saved 160 tons of waste during 3 years, and which is equivalent to 1,600 tons of CO2. So that's for the sustainability part. And on the financial side, we know that more or less this 1,000 ads saved 3,300 assets that were exchanged, saved, and that is interesting to know that those assets has a value at the initial price. So when they were new, their value was around 4.6 million of euros. But you understand that as we have some second-hand assets, but some of them might be new when they are exchanged on the marketplace, but sometimes they are very old. So we estimate globally that we increase the lifespan of the asset by a third. So we consider that we make some financial savings equivalent to the third of the new price. So as I said, it's around probably 1.5 million of euros. That is the value of the second hand of assets in terms of financial aspect. We have many other benefits. We could say that we avoid the treatment of the waste. We avoid the square meters that are blocked for to store the assets. So we have other benefits.
Well, that's still is already impressive. I mean, and thanks for sharing all these details, because it really indicates and showcases how much value sits in such an initiative, which is really amazing. Really good. I can imagine, because you're looking into your own teams and inside of Airbus, maybe there's the one or the other occasion where maybe there's not an internal demand for the one or the other asset that you've been sharing. Maybe you need to look somewhere else. And I think, Bernd, you know more about this. Can you tell us a little bit more about the maybe external side of this initiative?
Yes, thanks for the question, Heiko. And I need to admit, I'm really a big fan of that platform from the beginning, by the way. I was promoting a lot this platform, but maybe sometimes it could happen that we do not find a match inside of Airbus with all the equipment which is offered there, and we should not give up then. So we move it, we can call it a kind of a two alternative strategy. So we could firstly look at reselling that. Yeah, so all the equipment we have here on stock, so we can ask, can this item still do the job it was built for in another industry? And that's also happening. And if yes, we find an external buyer who can use it for different purposes. Or if it's highly specialized, we look at the second alternative, which is a supplier buyback. You know, these are very expensive items sometimes. And so we go back to the original manufacturers and negotiate with them to take it back or refurbish it or reclaim the high value components which are included there. So all this can happen. Well, I mean, I like to think of give an example of a relay race. So if your internal teams cannot take the bait, and we don't drop it. So we continue, and our people are really eager to find alternative solutions. So we find maybe an external partner who is ready to run for it, or, well, the goal is always to keep that material moving and keep it out of the scrap heap for as long as possible and do something with it, and never give up. This is, I think, super important.
I think it's a very interesting perspective that you take here, looking into the original manufacturers also, which maybe have an interest in that, especially when I think of investment goods like machinery, industrial machinery, right? So can you maybe point out what kind of potential buyers are out there that are interested? What can we imagine there?
Yeah, sure. Yes, I can. And it really depends on the kind of category of the equipment, but it is a much, I would say, broader market than you might think. Sometimes we have interests from very different industries where we did not think of. And for these high value products we have in our portfolio, often the best buyers is the original supplier. So they might be interested in a buyback to refurbish the item and resell it in a more competitive price point afterwards. And what is important for us is always to look at the industrial company we are dealing with, so that it is always secured that the industrial property or IP aspects are respected. Well, I can make maybe a kind of a recent example we had. So, for example, battery cells. This is everywhere. It's a very important and high valuable asset, and we were able to resell those to other companies. We did not use it anymore, and they were quite new, and so we could give them to other companies. They use it in their products, or to a specialized broker. Then for items we have not reached the end of their functional life, we work with so-called revalorization companies. They aren't looking for the tool itself, but they are looking more for the treasure inside. So the aluminum, the copper, all the rare metals, which can be found in the electronics. And we make sure that those materials go back then in the global supply chain of their companies.
That's great. I mean, thanks for sharing the example, especially with the batteries, which is of high interest at the very moment. Actually, at these days, actually, right? I wonder. I mean, because batteries is a typical thing everyone can imagine. How do you evaluate the value? How do you qualify, for example, batteries to be part of this market and to be interesting or appealing for your outside buyers?
Well, less about the age, I would say, and more about how it can be used. What is the best use? I think it's a relatively new product. Then our priority is more to resell it for the original industrial use, or we want it to keep doing it what it was built for before. And however, for older assets, we shift our focus more to the material value, which is so important at the moment for all what is internally in that product available. So at that stage, we are reselling it for the high grade of aluminum or stainless steel it contains, or it's about, matching the assets to the right secondary market at the right time. So what we also have in our portfolio, for example, is so-called EGSE, so it's electrical ground support equipment, which we use to build our satellites, and are really complex test racks and used for our satellites. So we had several units that were no longer required for our missions, and right now we are in the commercial discussions with them to specialize these. So maybe they use it also for rentals, and not only to deconstruct these kind of racks, but also to rent it to other companies.
You make a good point here, which is super interesting, especially when it comes to this very specialized and high value equipment, right? I can imagine there's a lot of interest in that outside Airbus even. So I wonder, because you cannot be everywhere, and even the moderator of that marketplace can't be everywhere. So can everyone put anything into that marketplace? How does that work? And maybe a second part to that question is also, can everyone see it from the outside, or do you go selling it? I don't know. How does that work?
Well, definitely not, Heiko. So, because we are Airbus and we have very strict and compliance and safety standards. So, every external sale, of course, needs to be supported by our legal, commercial, and ethic and compliance teams. We use a process called Know Your Customer, and we do agreements with them to ensure always that we are dealing with reputable partners. It's a professional and controlled process that ensures circularity doesn't come at the cost of compliance. So that is super important for us.
When we talk about the marketplace, what comes to mind first is, that's something like eBay or whatever, something like that, right? So I put my stuff in there, then someone will purchase it. Well, fine, done, right? It's not that simple, but it's make total sense because the equipment that you are putting into marketplace is not simple, right? So, but still, I wonder, when I think of forklifts, for example, if you put these in the marketplace and someone outside's interested, right? How do you negotiate the price point, or how much time do you spend to get that out? So is it like, okay, we're happy to get rid of it, just take it, or how does that work?
Well, you're talking to a finance guy, and there's always finance behind, yeah. So it always must to be a kind of a business case what we do, and we could call it kind of an efficiency challenge. And I think to solve this, we have structured two specific buyback channels one for raw materials, kind of metals, and for electronics. So there are different prices and different markets. So we have trusted partners ready to take these materials, so that we do not need to start from scratch every time. And remember, it's not just about the sale price. Yeah. So of course we would like to get reimbursed for all the cost we had, but by avoiding scrapping, we save also significantly the waste disposal cost, and it's always a win-win. Yeah? So this needs to be sure when we destruct, for example, big boxes or containers, to get the nails out of the wood, etc. So this needs always to be secure that it's a kind of an economic case. And we get a return on the material and avoid a bill for the bin, I would say. Yeah. So this is we get always something back, and it needs to be in an economic balance.
Sure. So that also means that you're kind of not only qualifying the equipment, but you're processing it kind of. So because that's what I was wondering also about. So sure, the one thing like to make an offering to outside partners. The other one is like, how do you ensure like that the quality and the liability of the products is matching maybe the demands or what your customers or partners are expecting? How do you match that? Because I guess it's different than on the typical consumers platform where you have stars, like a 1 star, so you did not do a good job and you get 5 stars. Is that something comparable? It's different. You get 5 stars anyways, I know. But how's that with your platform?
Yes, that's super important. So we are Airbus, as I said before, and safety is our number one priority everywhere. And to avoid any risks, we have a firm rule. So we never sell safety critical equipment. So take a ladder or lifting platforms to external parties. So for everything else, we sell it strictly as is, of course, like this is standard with a robust, we can call it a second-hand contract developed with our legal teams. And this clear boundary allows us to be circular without compromising our responsibility. So it always needs to be clear.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when you do a good job on that one, then it for sure will grow further. And I think that's what everyone's also interested in. So you started internally, and then you also look into the outside, which is the aspect of growing that platform, which makes it even more stronger over the time. So maybe you can share us a bit of the impact that you've been creating on the platform with commercial aspects, or the impact overall, like from the external side. Is it comparable to the internal side?
Well, so the impact, so we did last year a kind of a spring cleaning in all our warehouses in defense and space, and it was really measurable and very real. So I would give you a number of about 130 tons of products, which we revalorized across France and the UK, with 60 tons of that being directly sold. So you saw a lot of trucks there with a lot of equipment going out and sold. Then from a financial perspective, I would say it's not that huge. Yeah, it's probably 6-digit euro revenue, what we did. But on the other side, we avoided a lot of scrapping costs, and this was really a business case for a financial guy like me. So it's super important. And it's really a powerful combination. I mean, a positive financial impact for the company and a win for the sustainability, all while keeping another 100 tons of material in a continuous loop. And that makes us also fine. It was very well perceived by our employees. And what we intend to do now to scale this further is to exploring also other professional auction platforms on a professional sites, not eBay, but the more professional platforms we can use here.
Wonderful. So especially thanks to Amanda and Bernd for first Amanda, in your case, sharing how you keep the value of the assets inside Airbus, and then Bernd exploring, okay, what happens if there's no internal demand, and how can we still capture the value of non-flying assets, as I just learned, outside. And Bernd, you also mentioned, of course, that even for some materials or components, it's more about the scrap value. But now, question to Natalie: what happens with the ads and the products where you don't find anyone internally or externally who wants to buy that from you?
Yes. So if we cannot find internal users or external opportunities, we reach the third stage of our strategy, which is to explore donation options. Of course, at Airbus, donation is subject to a rigorous check. And I will make the bridge with what Bernd was saying for a customer. We have a very strong scrutiny of the potential association or charities who want to donate, an ethic and compliance scrutiny. And like for potential external customer, we also complement this check with donation agreement, which is a legal framework which outlines the requirements for a second-hand exchange or second-hand usage of the assets. To give you a little bit of insight and a little bit to be factual, in Airbus Defence and Space Toulouse, thanks to the springs cleaning, we were able to donate around 21 tons of furniture and to rehabilitation association or hospital, and around 8.5 tons of containers to charities. Of course, it's nothing compared to what Bernd was explaining, but I often have in mind that every drop counts.
Yeah, fantastic. It's again impressive to see how many different strategies you use and combine and kind of cascade depending on value and of course security and your other criteria. And you already gave an kind of an idea what's the commercial value and of course also the strategic value of that. But Natalie, what makes SecondLife and all the activities around that, what makes it irresistible for Airbus?
Thanks for the good question. For me, SecondLife platform and even the extended, all the activities we have around the circularity in Airbus is irresistible for Airbus because for me, it fosters a circular mindset and behavior amongst the different employees of Airbus. The employees reusing, recycling unused assets. And of course, with that, it reduced the cost, it reduced the waste, even sometimes generating revenues while promoting sustainability and collaboration. So this is, I would say, a win-win approach.
Yeah, once again, fantastic to see what you have been managed to build up across divisions, across countries. So Heiko, I want to turn to you because once again, not every company is like Airbus, but I'm pretty sure you spotted some aspects that help other companies to pull something like that off the ground. So what's your take? When do these kind of marketplaces for equipment or excess materials, when do they work?
I think Natalie made a good point here, saying that the second life, which is attached to the value, that is the most important part, right? So I really love the story that you shared in the beginning. There's someone surrounded by value and asking the question, why don't we do something good with that, right? I mean, if you answer that question, I think that is the thing when these marketplaces start to work. There is value and utilize that. Do something with it. So, and especially when you then even can think of it can grow internally, the relevancy internally is there, right? And maybe that even turns to external partners too, which is the key to this.
Mm-hmm. Clear. We didn't hear a lot of barriers. Yeah? It's more like how the colleagues managed to overcome them. But I'm pretty sure you listen carefully. What are the barriers that need to be overcome?
Yes, I think your story here is a really awesome story in terms of there were no barriers. It just happened like lean and fluent, and I think that's because you do a great job and because you identified the value and the relevancy of the stuff, which really turns down the barriers. I mean, the challenges that I see, and you solve them pretty well, is like getting decision makers on board. Say how is there someone identifying an idea, and can that person promote that to at least one key personnel inside of the ecosystem, right? And then even go further. And that's where you did a great job, like the internal marketing. You promoted it, you let everyone participate, you made it transparent to everyone. I think this is what others may consider a barrier. You have been doing a great job on really utilizing that and make that grow from here. So that's what I think is super relevant for everyone. Find the right person, like, to make that happen.
And my last question, Heiko, if I found the right person internally on the management level, what's the pitch for such a marketplace?
I think Bernd made the best pitch. He said, there is no bill for the bin. Sure. I mean, honestly, if I would approach someone and say, here, we have some stuff, we can just put it in a bin, or we can make money with that, what would be the answer, right? And I think that's the contribution to the business is more than clear. It could be internally, could be efficiency, right? Say, let's reutilize stuff that we already own, right? That's no-brainer. But also, like, to the outside, say, look, even if we cannot use it here, maybe there's someone outside. And I think that's obvious, especially when you think of industrial equipment. That's so good. And I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, right? So it's has a business impact, and that's what you did great here. Yeah?
Natalie, Amanda, Bernd, congratulations for what you've achieved. And thanks for sharing your experience with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, I'm happy to be there.
Thanks, everyone.
This is the end of our series Irresistible Circular Business, in sponsoring partnership with Indeed Innovation, the global design and innovation firm pioneering the circular economy. Doing it together with the experts from Indeed Innovation was an innovation for me. Let me know how you liked having two co-hosts by sending an email to contact@circularity.fm or send me a private message via LinkedIn. In the next series, we will take a totally different and unusual perspective, the one of insurance companies. They are experts in risk, in fixing things and preserving value, a perfect starting point to dig deeper. In any case, let's drive a profitable circular economy. And please don't forget, the most abundant renewable resource is your imagination. My name is Patrick Hübscher, and this is Circularity FM, the podcast about understanding, building, and managing circular business models.